Beneath the lush jungles of Central America lies a world that has never truly seen the light of day. It is a place of dripping stone, echoing chambers, and ancient silence, a world that the Maya once believed was alive. They called it Xibalba, the Underworld, the kingdom of shadows, and the home of the gods of death. Before going into the main content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to discover more interesting topics. In 1989, a group of archaeologists led by Dr. Jaime Awe pushed into an unexplored cave system in Belize. They called it Actun Tunichil Muknal, the Cave of the Stone Sepulchre. The further they went, the more the air thickened, humid, heavy, alive. Bats circled their helmets as they squeezed through narrow passages filled with water that reached their chests. And then, in the dim glow of their headlamps, the walls began to glisten not from moisture, but from mineral deposits formed over centuries of human touch. What they discovered that day would change our understanding of the Maya forever. There, in the depths, lay the remains of more than a dozen human sacrifices. Men, women, and children, their bones scattered in ritual patterns, as if frozen in the middle of an ancient ceremony. One figure stood out from the rest. She was a young woman, lying face up, her body covered in a layer of calcite crystal that shimmered like glass. The team called her the Crystal Maiden. Her bones had turned to stone, yet her pose seemed strangely peaceful, arms spread wide, as if surrendering to the gods below. For the Maya, she was not a victim, she was an offering. The Maya believed that caves were sacred portals, living veins that connected the surface world to the gods beneath. When drought struck, when the crops failed, or when death spread through their cities, priests would descend into the earth to speak with the divine. And when words were not enough, blood would follow. Each drop was a message. Each life taken was a plea. They believed that by returning blood to the soil, the gods would once again allow rain to fall, corn to grow, and life to continue. Modern researchers, studying isotopic residues from the skeletons, found that these victims were not ordinary citizens. Most were children from noble families, chosen because purity of lineage was believed to please the gods. Carbon dating placed their deaths between 700 and 900 CE, a period when the Maya faced severe drought and social unrest. To them, the earth was not punishing them, it was calling them back. Inside the cave, archaeologists also discovered pottery, obsidian blades, and ritual objects arranged in circular formations. Each pattern mirrored the Maya concept of the universe, the surface above, the underworld below, and the sacred tree at the center connecting both worlds. When researchers mapped the cave, they realized its chambers aligned with constellations that the Maya used to chart the heavens. It was as if the underworld itself was a reflection of the stars. But there was something even more unsettling. Some of the bodies showed no sign of struggle. There were no broken bones, no defensive wounds. It appeared that the victims had willingly walked into death, perhaps under trance, or faith, or fear too deep for words. Dr. Ah once recalled in an interview, "When you step into that chamber, the silence feels wrong. It's as if the cave itself is listening to you." Many of the team later admitted they experienced vivid dreams after leaving the site. Dreams of endless corridors and faceless figures waiting in the dark. A few swore they could still smell the damp limestone even years later, as if a part of them had never come back. To the Maya, this was not superstition. It was a sacred truth that life and death are one, and the path to salvation leads downward, not upward. Their entire cosmology revolved around balance. For every birth, a sacrifice. For every harvest, a burial. The cave was both womb and tomb. Centuries later, as we stand above the same ground, we are reminded that civilization may rise on the surface, but the roots always reach back into the dark. Actun Tunichil Muknal remains sealed today, not out of fear, but out of respect, because some doors are meant to stay half closed, whispering their stories through cracks in the stone. And perhaps, if you listen closely enough, you might still hear it. The faint sound of dripping water, the echo of a heart that once beat in the dark, and the quiet voice of a forgotten girl calling from beneath the earth. But this was only the beginning. Deeper within the jungles, beyond the reach of light, lie entire cities the forest has devoured, silent, overgrown, and waiting to be rediscovered. In the next chapter, the cities swallowed by the jungle, we follow the trail of lost kingdoms buried beneath roots and time itself, and uncover what really happened to the civilization that dared to speak with the gods. Hidden beneath the emerald canopy of Guatemala and Mexico lies a world that once blazed with light. Where parrots scream today and vines creep through the ruins, there were once markets, temples, and the echo of drums calling worshippers to prayer. This was the heart of the Maya world, a civilization that carved its name into stone, then vanished as if the forest itself decided to breathe it back in. For centuries, explorers heard rumors whispered by villagers of stairways rising out of the jungle, of towers taller than trees. Some called them myths. But in 2018, the jungle finally gave up part of its secret. Using LiDAR, a laser-based technology that can see through foliage, researchers scanned hundreds of square miles of dense rainforest. What they found stunned the world. Beneath the leaves lay the outlines of more than 60,000 hidden structures, entire cities connected by raised highways, vast causeways stretching for miles, defensive walls, and pyramids the size of small mountains. The Maya had not vanished. They had simply been buried alive by time. Among the discoveries was El Mirador, an ancient metropolis so enormous that its central pyramid, La Danta, rivals the Great Pyramid of Giza in volume. Archaeologists believe as many as 1 million people once lived within the surrounding basin, yet not a single chronicler from Europe ever saw it. By the time the Spanish arrived, the jungle had already sealed its lips. Dr. Marcello Canuto, one of the leading archaeologists on the LiDAR project, said in disbelief, "We used to think of the Maya as scattered city-states. What we're seeing now is an empire, connected, engineered, alive. Stone highways crossed rivers, and valleys like veins. Reservoirs and canals shimmered beneath the canopy, proof of advanced water management centuries before modern plumbing. But the deeper the teams dug, the stranger the story became. Inside half-collapsed temples, they found skeletons arranged upright against the walls, hands resting calmly on their knees, skulls turned toward the north. Some had jade beads pressed into their mouths, a final offering to guide their souls to the stars. In others, murals depicted processions of masked priests walking into flames, their faces serene. It was as though the Maya had rehearsed their own disappearance. Legends tell of a time when the gods grew jealous of mankind's ambition. When humans built towers too high, the earth opened and swallowed them whole. Could the Maya have believed that prophecy was coming true? The forest fires, the failing rains, the endless wars between rival kings, all signs that the balance between worlds was breaking. Recent studies of pollen trapped in ancient lakebeds reveal that the Maya cleared vast swaths of forest to expand their farms and cities. In doing so, they may have triggered droughts that brought their own downfall. Yet, in their sacred texts, it was not the climate they blamed. It was silence the gods had stopped listening. Even today, pilots flying over the Petén Basin report strange shapes under the mist-perfect squares and terraces invisible from the ground. Every year the jungle covers more. Roots split stone. Vines strangle stairways that once led to heaven. The earth is slowly reclaiming what was built upon her back. At night, the forest still hums with unseen life. Locals tell of drums echoing through the trees, of ghostly fires flickering on distant hills. They say the ancient cities are not dead, merely sleeping, that when the wind moves just right, you can hear the chants of priests calling to gods who no longer answer. Perhaps the Maya never meant their cities to last forever. Perhaps they knew the jungle would one day take them back, as all living things return to the soil. Their temples were built not only to reach the sky, but also to fall gracefully into the arms of the earth. And so, what we see today, those moss-covered steps and broken altars, are not ruins. They are offerings, still being accepted. In the next chapter, The Gate to the Underworld, we descend beneath these fallen cities, into the sacred caverns where the Maya believed the living could speak directly with the dead. and where science now finds evidence of rituals too precise and too chilling to dismiss as mere myth. Beneath the cities that once reached for the sky lies another world, silent, sacred, and infinitely dark. To the Maya, it was not hell, nor a prison of the damned. It was a place of transformation, a realm where souls were tested, purified, and reborn. They called it Xibalba, the Place of Fright. The Maya believed that the surface world floated above a vast labyrinth of rivers and chambers ruled by the Lords of Death. To enter these caverns was to walk the boundary between life and eternity. For them, the mouth of a cave was more than a hole in the ground. It was a living being, a passage through which the breath of the gods rose and fell. In the 1,970 seconds, deep in the Petén jungle of Guatemala, explorers stumbled upon a site known as Actun Tunichil, the Stone House. What they found there blurred the line between archaeology and nightmare. The walls were covered in murals depicting masked priests carrying torches, kneeling before skeletal figures painted in red and black. Hieroglyphs described rituals meant to appease the rulers of Xibalba, 12 shadowy beings who governed sickness, fear, and decay. According to the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche Maya, 2 heroic twins once descended into these depths to confront the gods of death. They faced trials of blood, fire, and darkness, before finally defeating them and bringing light back to the world. To the Maya, this myth was not just a story. It was a map, a guide for the soul's journey after death. Archaeologists found evidence that these stories were reenacted in the real world. In chamber after chamber, they discovered burned incense pots, offerings of obsidian blades, and remains of food meant for the gods. Deeper still, bones. Some bodies showed signs of ritual execution, chests pierced, skulls cracked cleanly in half, as if by deliberate precision. Others bore no marks at all, suggesting death by suffocation or poisoning. Whatever the method, the purpose was always the same: to feed the underworld. One of the strangest discoveries came in 2008 when divers exploring a flooded cave near Tulum, Mexico, found an altar 40 meters below the surface. Resting upon it was a collection of bones and jade ornaments, still arranged in perfect ceremonial alignment. After more than 1,000 years underwater, the scene remained untouched, as if frozen mid-ritual. The divers reported hallucinations, whispers, even sensations of being watched. Later analysis revealed dangerously high levels of carbon dioxide and methane in the cave's air pockets, enough to induce dizziness and visions. To ancient priests, this was not science. It was presence proof that the gods were near. In the nearby Balancanche cave, archaeologists uncovered chambers that seemed built to echo sound in haunting ways. A single chant would ripple through the tunnels and return as a chorus. Imagine priests standing in those chambers, torches flickering, the air thick with incense, believing that the voices answering them were divine. Perhaps they weren't entirely wrong. Some caves bore names like the House of Knives and the River of Blood. The walls shimmered with mineral deposits resembling veins, as if the earth itself bled. Inscriptions described the journey of the soul through 9 levels of the underworld, each guarded by a god demanding tribute. Only through endurance and sacrifice could one ascend again into the light. Modern explorers, equipped with sonar and mapping drones, now realize that these cave systems stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Rivers of darkness winding beneath the very foundations of Maya temples. It is as though the cities above were merely reflections of the underworld below. Each temple, each pyramid, aligned not only with the stars but also with a cave mouth hidden in the earth. Heaven mirrored hell. Light mirrored shadow. When archaeologists enter these places today, they describe the same sensation again and again, the feeling of being observed. The light of their headlamps fades too quickly. Voices seem to travel in circles. One researcher from the University of San Carlos wrote in his notes, "It feels as though the cave is breathing with us, waiting for us to make the wrong sound." Maybe the Maya were not worshipping death at all. Maybe they were searching for balance, for a way to understand the darkness that exists in everything. They did not fear the underworld. They respected it. Because in their eyes, life without death was an incomplete circle. And perhaps that is why their civilization built upward toward the heavens, but always kept one foot planted firmly in the soil, reaching downward into the dark. In the next chapter, The Sunken Temples, we follow the rivers that flow beneath these sacred caves, into the flooded chambers where the Maya cast their greatest offerings and where time itself has stood still, preserving their prayers in eternal silence. Hidden deep within the jungles of Yucatan lie the gateways to the Maya underworld, the cenotes, sacred wells that pierce the earth and plunge into eternal blue. From above, they look peaceful, reflecting sunlight through vines and mist. But beneath that glassy surface is an abyss, cold, silent, and filled with the memories of those who never returned. The Maya believed these wells connected their world to the gods. To them, the water was alive, a mirror of the sky, and a doorway to Xibalba. Here, they offered not only gold and jade, but blood. Every drop that sank into the darkness was a message, a plea for rain, a cry for mercy, a bargain for life itself. In 1904, explorer Edward Thompson dredged the Great Cenote at Chichen Itza despite warnings from locals. What he found shocked the world: hundreds of artifacts and the bones of men, women, and children. Some skulls were fractured, others still bore traces of blue pigment, the sacred color of sacrifice. They had been thrown alive into the well, not as punishment, but as offerings to the rain god Chak. During times of drought, priests would gather the people before the water's edge. Incense burned, drums echoed. Chosen victims, often young and noble, were blessed and cast into the depths. To the Maya, these were not deaths, they were messages, carried down through the darkness to awaken the sleeping gods. Modern divers who have entered these same cenotes describe an unearthly calm. Sound fades, light bends strangely, scattering across ancient walls. In that silence, you can almost hear whispers, the same chants that once rose from the jungle centuries ago. Beneath the Yucatan, scientists have discovered that these cenotes are not isolated wells, but part of a vast underwater labyrinth, stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Many temples sit directly above them, as if the Maya built their sacred cities to align with the underworld below. The architecture, the carvings, even the astronomical layout all point to one idea. The Maya designed their world as a reflection of the heavens and the deep. In one submerged chamber near Haltun, divers found an altar surrounded by carvings of serpents and skulls. At its center lay a single obsidian blade, still sharp after 1,000 years. Analysis revealed traces of blood, human blood. It was a ritual space, preserved by the water that claimed it. Yet not all offerings were violent. Some temples contain murals of prayers, painted onto stone and left to fade in the dark. Others show depictions of stars, eclipses, and floods, messages meant for gods who could read what humans could not. Each symbol is both confession and promise, a reminder that faith and fear are often carved from the same stone. Scientists studying the sediment at the bottom of these wells have uncovered the real reason behind the desperation. Layers of dust and ash show centuries of severe drought times. When the rivers dried, crops failed, and the people turned back to the gods in panic. When rain would not fall, they offered what was most precious: life. Even today, the cenotes guard their secrets. Sunlight filters down like gold dust, revealing the bones and treasures that rest on the floor, untouched, undisturbed. To dive here is to step through time itself. Every shadow, every glint of jade, every quiet ripple feels alive with memory. The Maya believed that divinity was not above, but below, that life and death were two halves of one reflection, separated only by water. In the stillness of these wells, that belief feels almost real. You can sense the pulse of an ancient world still beating under the earth. As we rise from the depths, we approach the twilight of the Maya civilization, a time when the rain stopped, the temples cracked, and the empire of the sun began to crumble. In the next chapter, The Collapse of the Sun Kingdoms, we witness the moment when faith turned to fear, and the gods of the underworld fell silent for the last time. There was a time when the Maya ruled the heavens. Their cities rose like stone forests, their temples aligned perfectly with the stars. Every movement of the sun, every shadow that crossed a pyramid step, it all meant something. They believed that by mastering time itself, they could control the balance between gods and men. But then, the sky changed. Sometime after 800 CE, the rains began to fade. The rivers shrank. Crops withered in the heat. And the same people who once built cities that touched the clouds found themselves staring upward, waiting for clouds that would never come. At first, they turned to prayer. Priests lit fires, burned incense, and offered the blood of kings to awaken Chak, the god of rain. But when the skies remained silent, fear crept into the temples. Old gods were blamed, new gods were invented, and across the land, the sacred cities of the Maya began to turn on each other. The collapse was not one single event. It was a slow, unraveling centuries of hunger, war, and betrayal woven together by desperation. Inscriptions carved into crumbling walls tell of empty granaries, abandoned fields, and kings who vanished into the forest, never to return. Some cities were consumed by war, others by silence. At Tikal, once the heart of a mighty empire, the palaces were deserted. The sacred fires went out. By 900 CE, the jungle had reclaimed the plazas, vines crawling over altars once washed in royal blood. At Copan, hieroglyphic stairways recorded a final desperate lineage, kings rising and falling faster than the crops could grow. And deep in the south, at Karakol, the great causeways cracked under the weight of their own forgotten glory. Archaeologists studying the soil found layers of charcoal and ash, signs of mass burning. It wasn't conquest. It was ritual cities being symbolically destroyed by their own people. Temples burned to cleanse them of failure. Homes torched to appease gods who had turned away. But beyond the fires lay something colder. Evidence shows that as drought deepened, the water tables fell and entire reservoirs ran dry. The sacred cenotes that once gave life became tombs. The Maya had built their civilization on faith and stone, both of which can crumble when the earth itself turns against you. And yet, even as their world fell apart, the Maya did not abandon belief. They built smaller shrines, hidden deep in caves and under jungle canopies. They continued to offer jade, shells, and blood not in grandeur, but in quiet devotion. They were not surrendering, they were waiting. Inscriptions from this late period speak of cycles, endings that are not endings at all, but transformations. They wrote of the turning of the sun, the sleeping of the gods, the breath that returns. To them, collapse was not death, it was renewal through suffering. Modern researchers now know that the droughts of that era were among the most severe in 2,000 years. Tree rings and lake sediments confirm decades of arid heat, broken only by brief, violent storms that stripped the soil bare. The land could no longer sustain the millions who depended on it. The jungles that once fed them swallowed their cities whole. When the Spanish arrived centuries later, they found ruins already claimed by roots and silence. But the Maya were not gone, only changed. Their descendants still live across Central America, speaking fragments of the same language, carrying memories of the same gods. They still honor the cycles planting, harvesting, watching the stars as their ancestors once did. Some say the collapse of the Maya was a warning, written in stone and forgotten by time, that no matter how high a civilization climbs, it cannot outlast the balance it was built upon. Others believe it was a prophecy that the gods never died, only slept, waiting for the next turning of the sun. When you walk through the ruins today, through corridors where vines twist over carvings of kings and serpents, you can feel that the story is not over. The jungle hums with life, as if the earth itself is breathing through the stones, and if you listen long enough, the silence begins to sound like memory. The Maya once believed that everything that rises must one day return to the soil. Perhaps they were right. Civilization begins and ends not with conquest, but with the quiet whisper of rain that never comes. In the final chapter, Echoes of the Forgotten Empire, we follow the lingering traces of their world, the mathematics that measured eternity, the temples aligned to dying stars, and the haunting question that still echoes beneath the jungle canopy. Did the Maya truly vanish, or did they simply move beyond our understanding? Centuries have passed since the last Maya kings walked their stone cities. The jungle has reclaimed their temples, the rivers have redrawn their borders, and time has erased their names from memory. Yet somehow, they still speak not with words, but with echoes.
Incredible.
When the first explorers cut their way through the forests of Guatemala and Yucatan, they believed they had found the remains of a lost world. Towering pyramids rose from the mist, covered in vines and moss, their faces carved with strange glyphs and silent gods. To the Western mind, these were ruins, dead cities swallowed by time. But to those who still carried the blood of the Maya, they were not ruins at all. They were sleeping hearts, waiting to be heard again. Archaeologists have spent decades trying to decipher the voice of this forgotten empire. Each glyph, each mural, each bone unearthed, tells a story of brilliance and fragility. The Maya charted the stars with a precision that still humbles modern astronomers. They built observatories aligned to solstices and eclipses, predicting cosmic cycles centuries into the future. Their mathematics used the concept of zero long before Europe ever dreamed of it, and their calendars, vast, complex, and beautiful, were not warnings of apocalypse, but reflections of eternity. But the deeper we dig, the more their world begins to blur between science and spirit. Their temples were not merely monuments, they were instruments of resonance. When wind passed through the stairways of Chichen Itza, it produced the sound of a quetzal bird sacred to the gods. When priests chanted within the chambers of Palenque, the echo repeated like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Sound, light, and stone, all woven into a single symphony meant to bridge worlds. Even their art whispers in ways we still don't understand. Murals depict celestial beings walking among men, serpents coiling through the sky, and portals opening from the ground. Were these myths, memories, or messages meant for those who came after? In 2018, LiDAR technology revealed something astonishing. More than 60,000 hidden structures beneath the jungle canopy cities, roads, fortresses, irrigation systems, all connected like a living network. The Maya had not vanished. They had simply been buried, preserved beneath the skin of the earth. It was as if the jungle had been protecting their secret all along. And perhaps that is the real story, not one of disappearance, but transformation. Because the Maya people never truly ended. Their descendants still walk the same lands, still plant corn by the phases of the moon, still whisper prayers to the same gods, though by different names. Their language endures in villages scattered from Belize to Chiapas. Their myths folded quietly into Catholic hymns and harvest songs. They are not ghosts, they are survivors. Modern scientists continue to uncover the brilliance of their knowledge. Their architecture remains mathematically flawless. Their astronomical calculations match modern precision to within seconds. And yet, the one mystery that remains unsolved is the one that no instrument can measure how a civilization so advanced could choose to fade away, leaving only beauty and silence behind. Some believe they foresaw their own end, that the Maya understood time as a spiral, not a line, and knew the cycle of their world had reached its turning point. To them, death was not destruction, but renewal. A door closing in one age so another could open. Standing among their ruins, you can feel it, a vibration beneath the stone, a breath between the trees. Every echo in these temples feels like a pulse, faint but alive. The gods of the underworld may have fallen silent, but the earth still remembers their names. As night descends over the jungles of Tikal, the last light fades across the temple tops, and the air fills with the cries of unseen birds. Somewhere, water drips into an ancient well, and the sound travels downward into the same darkness that once heard the prayers of kings. The echoes ripple outward, across centuries, across silence, until they reach us. The Maya believed the soul never dies. It only changes form from flesh to stone, from sound to shadow, from memory to myth. And perhaps that is why, even now, we still feel their presence. Not as ghosts, but as guardians of balance, reminding us that every civilization, no matter how mighty, must one day return to the soil. Because the earth remembers, the water remembers, and the echoes of the Maya never stopped calling. The underworld is filled with stories yet untold. What abyss should we explore next? What mysteries hidden beneath the surface do you want uncovered? Drop your ideas and suggestions in the comments below. Your curiosity fuels our exploration and will guide our next mission into the unknown.